Watch this.
Crime and punishment isn't exactly the cornerstone of what we cover here on the 208. But when a Boise man gets picked up for 15 federal charges, including trying to get federal officials killed, all that might deserve some attention. The City Club is taking some time to help people understand what it means to be civil. And they're picking a good time to do it, too, right before tonight's presidential debate, which lately isn't usually when we see civility. You know, there's a lot of debate over whether or not Idaho should have open primaries and ranked choice voting. That won't be decided today, but there is a question we can answer about a certain campaign sign from one side of the argument. He allegedly solicited murders and hate crimes based on race, religion, national origin, sexual orientation, and gender identity. And today he was in federal court to hear the 15 charges against him. Matthew Allison of Boise was arrested Friday for being allegedly one of the leaders of a transnational terrorist group and inciting violence against federal officials and including how-to instructions for making explosives. The group he was a part of did all this online, we're told, over the social media platform Telegram. The Department of Justice called last week's arrest, quote, a warning that committing hate-fueled crimes in the darkest corners of the internet will not hide you. We have a crew in federal court at the moment for Allison's arraignment, which just wrapped up. But Aspen Shumpert details the federal charges and describes what officials found on him and in his apartment after arresting him.
37-year-old Matthew Allison from Boise and 34-year-old Dallas Humber of California were both arrested Friday on 15 different felony charges. The Boise Police Department says one of their officers helped the FBI arrest Allison in Boise. This 37-page indictment accuses Allison and Humber of being white supremacists and managing a channel called Telegram on the app Telegram. The Justice Department labels the group as a transnational terrorist group and says the Telegram channel supports the idea that, quote, the white race is superior and violence is necessary to the corrupt society because political action cannot save it. The indictment alleges the two conspired to recruit people to carry out attacks, aligning with that idea. Federal prosecutors say they also showed people how to create bombs and other weapons, and put together a kill list that included a U.S. senator, a federal judge, and a former U.S. attorney general, as well as state and local officials and private leaders. Prosecutors allege they solicited attacks on critical infrastructure like federal buildings and energy facilities, and encouraged 3 terror attacks, 2 successful ones in Slovakia and Turkey, and 1 unsuccessful plot in New Jersey. The U.S. Attorney for Idaho filed a motion for detention, asking the judge to hold both suspects in jail until trial. The motion claims Allison and Humber committed the most serious of crimes and pose a danger to the community. According to prosecutors, when Allison was arrested in Boise, he had a bag with items like phones, a gun and ammunition, and lockpicking equipment. Records show authorities also found an assault rifle, ammo, laptops, and a go bag in his apartment. If convicted, both Allison and Humber face a maximum of 220 years in prison. Again, we did have crews in court for Allison's arraignment just before this. There was no entry of a plea. He was just read his charges, and the hearing for the detention was scheduled for September 18th.
Okay, so Morgan Romero was in court today. Did you talk to her about kind of what his, I guess, appearance and maybe his mood might have been?
Yeah, we briefly talked. She said, he was in an orange jumpsuit and he did have handcuffs on, but nothing about his appearance or how he was acting in court. Again, it was very quick.
Yeah.
I think it was maybe 20 minutes, and so kind of watching from now between September 18th to see what else we can find out.
Today, the first of many steps in this whole process.
Yep.
Thank you very much, Aspen. Putting presidential debate and civil discourse in the same sentence just doesn't seem to mesh. At least it hasn't in the last few presidential elections. Tonight will be the first debate between the current candidates. That'd be former President Donald Trump and the current Vice President Kamala Harris. That debate will begin at 6 right here on Channel 7. But right about that time, another event will be ending that will be centered on the civil discourse we just mentioned. City Club of Boise, a local nonprofit focused on discussing issues in a nonpartisan civil manner, is currently holding one such discussion with the goal of getting voters across the spectrum engaged, not enraged. Here's Joe Paris.
The American political cycle is headed for the crescendo of Election Day. Voters in November will select a new American president. But talking politics seems to get harder and harder, especially face-to-face.
Tonight we're hosting Voting 101.
Neva Geisler is with City Club Boise, a group that focuses on civil discourse, something their debate night event is focused on.
It's really impactful to get people together. At City Club for 30 years now, we've been pulling people together for community conversations that are nonpartisan, rooted in civil discourse, and around issues that matter at the local, state, and national level.
An event with local partners provides a stage for engagement, face-to-face. Focus being on how to be a civically engaged and informed citizen.
You mentioned it's a nonpartisan event. What do you think the importance of this not being politicized? It's just about voting.
Yeah, well, that's democracy. Democracy depends on people being engaged, being informed, and then really activating with their vote.
What are you hoping the community or people that show up tonight get out of the event?
I hope they get out of the event a few things. I hope that they feel more informed. I hope that they feel more connected to their community, and I hope that they understand the importance of involvement and engagement and that it really matters that every person is doing something.
Organizers of the Voting 101 event Tuesday night at the Shrine Social Club hope for impactful outcomes.
Civil discourse is critical to democracy. We need to be able to talk about important issues that can sometimes feel polarizing, but until we start to talk about them, understand maybe where we meet in the middle or what commonalities we share, then we're not really going to move forward.
Taking turns talking is one avenue to take into a conversation, but City Club pushes for talking and listening.
Yeah, and we talked about that this will really tee up people to maybe be a little bit more informed and certainly be more engaged. We know that communities work best when it's a fabric that is all different kinds of people coming from all different kinds of backgrounds and perspectives, and we really strive for that at City Club.
So, a programming note related to all of this. We mentioned the debate, so we will not have a news at 6 today because we will have NBC coverage of the debate, but we will have post coverage on the news at 10. I do want to mention, Brian, of course, the Voting 101 event. It starts at 5:30 at the Shrine Social Club in Boise. You can get tickets at the door if you're interested. The debate, though, is at 7 p.m.
Okay.
So the actual debate will be at 7 p.m., television coverage an hour before that. So you can definitely make both events if you were wanting to. You and I chatting during the story. Specifically, what are they talking about? It's a lot of voter information in terms of getting people involved from across the spectrum. Their kind of prompt was, do you know who your local leader is? Could you name who your legislator is? Could you name who your senator is? So it's about giving people the tools to be involved and then encouraging people to talk about sensitive topics.
But not talking about specific issues, local issues.
Correct. Not tonight, but they do have a lot of events where they do stuff like that. They had a ranked choice voting forum that happened just this week. So they are trying to create, an environment like the Braver Angels story that we told earlier this year, encouraging people from opposite sides of the spectrum to come together to have civil conversations. We can have our own beliefs, but one that we should share is having mature adult conversations.
All right, so that, again, starts in just about 20 minutes. Thank you very much, Joe. All right, Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, not the only presidential candidates you'll see listed on the November ballot. In fact, Vito voters are going to see 9 names, according to the Secretary of State, Phil McGrain. In addition to the Democratic and Republican nominees debating tonight, there's author Joel Schoolson with the Constitution Party, American activist and libertarian Chase Oliver. There are also 5 independents on that list, including activist Claudia De La Cruz, physician Jill Stein, politician Randall Terry, and a name you might know, that'd be politician Robert Kennedy Jr., who actually suspended his campaign. You probably remember that happening, but he does remain on the Idaho ballot. The deadline for an independent presidential candidate to file has already passed, so you're not going to see any more names added to that list. That was September 1st on Sunday, but the deadline for partisan candidates to take their names off the ballot, that also passed. That was on Friday, which is why you're going to see Kennedy's name still on there. Kennedy did not withdraw his name from Idaho, even though removing his name on other state ballots has gone all the way to the state Supreme Courts. Yesterday, North Carolina Supreme Court ruled to take RFK Jr.'s name off their ballot, delaying absentee ballots being sent out. Meanwhile, Michigan's Supreme Court, well, they decided against doing that yesterday, so they're going to remove him from the ballot. Or I should say, they're going to keep him, we're going to keep him on the ballot. That's what they're doing. So you'll likely see his name on Idaho's ballot also come November 5th, barring any legal action, along with all those 8 others we just showed you. But a nonpartisan candidate can still get their name removed. That is up until September 20th. So stay tuned. Well, we are in the home stretch of election season, so you're probably bracing yourself for all the campaign signs popping up on your local street corners. And it seems the opponents of Proposition 1 here in Idaho were ready to plant their signs, just waiting to see if a court deemed the open primaries initiative valid. Well, with that happening late last week, people started seeing the anti-open primary signs show up. But the sight of them also brought some questions, like from JD, who sent us this email about driving down Chinden Boulevard Saturday, said he noticed several signs in Ada County for about 3 miles suggesting a no vote on Proposition 1. Lori, well, she saw a huge sign at the corner of Cherry Lane and Linder in Meridian. Both JD and Lori noticed what looked like the state seal of Idaho on the right side of that sign, and both got the impression, including the state seal on a campaign sign, well, that would imply the state of Idaho is making a political statement and endorsing the message behind the sign. Both JD and Lori, they wanted to know if this was legal or even appropriate. So here's the sign they're talking about. A 4 by 6 foot blue sign with the yellow letters that say, "Don't Californicate Idaho's elections, vote no on Prop 1, ranked choice voting." Now, let's set aside the California reference, which seems to be a means to raise the cackles of, quote, true Idahoans, but really has nothing to do with California, since only 6 cities in California currently use ranked choice voting in local elections. But take a look at the right side of that sign. There is what appears to be the Idaho State seal. The sign, by the way, is paid for by the Idaho State Republican Central Committee. So to answer JD and Lori's question about legality and whether this is appropriate to include that on the sign, we asked the custodian of the Great Seal of the state of Idaho, that'd be the Office of the Secretary of State, who told us they have also received several questions about these signs over the last several days. Their guidance for use of the state seal is, well, listed on the Secretary of State's website, which says the seal should be displayed in good state without alteration and should not convey the impression that the product or services are state authorized, sponsored, or endorsed. And I know what you're probably thinking. That clearly is an impression of approval, right? With the inclusion of the state seal on a campaign sign. However, if you look closely again at the sign, that seal is actually the image of the state flag. The banner beneath that seal that says the state of Idaho on it right there, that's what makes it part of the flag. Without it, it's just the state seal, but with it, with that banner and the color of the sign being the same as the state flag, well, the Secretary of State told us today the signs in question have the state flag, which includes the state seal. And because it is the display of the state flag, the office does not believe the signs conflict with guidance on the use of the state seal. So there you go, JD and Lori. Use of the state seal alone might have gotten a reprimand from the state, but using an image of the state flag, which includes a state seal with that decorative banner underneath, well, I guess that's fair game. Nothing is more Idaho than talking about ag. But apparently we aren't doing it enough, because there's a lot of kids out there who think bacon grows out of the ground. One local program, though, is trying to change that. Bacon, it makes everything better. You know what makes the 208 better? I mean, besides bacon. Your comments and questions and quirky takes. Now's the time. Text us, 208-321-5614. As always, include your name and the hashtag #the208. Keep them clean, keep them concise, keep them clever, and we might be able to show yours at the end of the show. You know that milk you poured over your cereal this morning or the cream you splashed in your coffee? I'm going to go out on a limb and say you probably know where that came from. The store, likely, but originally from a dairy cow, and maybe from an Idaho dairy since, well, the Gem State is number 3 in the nation for milk and cheese production. But you've been around a while, so you know this. But you also might be surprised to learn 40% of kids between the ages of 4 and 7 think bacon, hot dogs, and chicken nuggets came from plants. And get this, that same Furman University study from 3 years ago found 47% of kids surveyed believed French fries came from an animal. The horror. But that is why the FFA Meridian chapter is stepping up to teach first graders about where their food comes from. And Hunter Funk, well, she stopped by their expo today to kind of hear them explain how Idaho Ag is more about milk, more than just milk and potatoes, right?
Yeah, you nailed it right there.
Yep.
You can be a bee farmer to make honey.
Yeah.
You can be a dairy farmer to produce milk, and yes, a pig farmer to produce bacon and hot dogs. All of that was taught to the hundreds of first graders in West Ada School District today. It's not just farming, but teaching conservation efforts for wildlife and teaching kids about the possibilities that come with choosing farming as a career.
It's super important to educate these kids at such a young age because a lot of them just think that their food comes from the grocery store, but that is so not true. It gives them an opportunity to learn about not only their state, where their food comes from, but how they can take part of it. It also kind of gives them a look into what's going on around them in their world. A lot of the time we are growing up in an urban community, but as we see these fields around us, they don't really know what's going on. So this is a great opportunity to educate them on a level that they understand.
Now, coming up tonight at 10, we're going to hear if those first grade students still think their meat comes from plants, and how the Meridian FFA advisor hopes this will help fill the gap the ag community is seeing with young farmers. You know, that kind of calls into question, too.
Yeah.
We're in an urban community.
Sure.
There's an opportunity to farm in urban communities.
Yeah, because it's not just big farms, dairy farms, and growing the wheat and stuff out there. There's a lot you can do just in your backyard.
Yeah, we were talking, the Western Fair just recently. They were talking about how they're raising chickens.
Yep.
That's the prime example. You can
Raising
do it anywhere.
chickens and eggs.
Bees.
Yeah. And big gardens, all that kind of stuff. All right.
A lot of opportunities.
It's coming up tonight at 10. Thank you very much, Hunter. We'll look forward to that.
So I'm going to start with the heat, then I'm going to turn down the heat, then I'm going to show you the smoke. Hopefully that could change, but that's a big if on that one. There's so many fires around the area, I should say. Bogus Basin webcam. As you look over Deer Point and you can see down in, well, you can't see down into the valley. That's all the smoke that we have through there. Now the air quality is in the higher form of the yellow, which is actually doing pretty good. The heavier amounts of smoke is in western Montana, north up here toward Cascade, where some areas are in purple as well as in maroon, which means hazardous in some spots. So very bad in those locations. And when we look at how the smoke's going to move through, with the frontal system tomorrow, there could be more smoke, but there could be a lot of mixing of that smoke as well. And after we get a possibility of some rain, which I'll describe that storm system coming up, here now you're looking at Thursday into Friday, things could improve a little bit, especially for the valley, even the possibility of some of the smoke areas. When you consider that the temperatures are going to be coming down from this. Highs today, we're up around 90 degrees, and we're looking at high temperatures on Thursday. If you've been watching me, it's still in the 60s, so that's great. Shorter days, temperatures that drop down into the 60s, that'll help firefighters, and even the possibility of some rain. But in the meantime, there's some things that we have to watch on this. For example, we have some high clouds that are moving up into the area, as you can see here. It's over most of the northwest. Let me show you the storm system. It dropped clear down here from the Gulf of Alaska. It's moving rather quickly. Right now, the frontal system is just east of Seattle and Portland. As it moves toward Boise, it's going to be running into a lot hotter air down here in the valley because we have those highs you just saw up around 90 degrees for today. When that happens, a lot of combustion is going to take place in the atmosphere. That means some gusty winds are possible, even some lightning. That's the bad thing. But near some of the lightning could be some rain, which could be helpful, okay? All of these have some ifs as it moves through, but it looks like quite a dynamic storm that's going to be pushing through the area, so watch that for tomorrow. If you look at the Futurecast, you can see coming in through here, there you go, the first part, that's tomorrow afternoon about 2 to 3 o'clock. That's when you're looking at some thunderstorms as well as some rain that's with that. Also see some gusty winds. How much rain? Well, as it begins around 2 to 3 o'clock, you can see that with the first initial impact, not everybody will get it. You see Ontario, we're just kind of hit and missing with some of these, and that's going to be the day for tomorrow. So some spots 1/4 of an inch or more, other spots may not see a whole lot of anything. So we call it a first alert weather day for tomorrow afternoon going into Thursday because of that storm system and some of the strong gusty winds that's going to occur with some of these storms. So let's walk back through this. First of all, we begin with the chance of lightning as it comes through, probably about anywhere from about 1 to 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. Gusty winds could also be a part of that, and that could cause some real havoc for some of the fires in the area. Rain afterwards, and even getting into some rain later tomorrow night as well as early Thursday morning. And that's where the 1/4 of an inch of rain could occur. That could help things out quite a little bit in the firefighting efforts. Also the fact that the temperatures are coming down, which is probably the first thing that you saw. Tomorrow, the high temperature is 74 degrees, and then you see Thursday, the high temperature is at 68. Now, morning low temperatures are coming down. Look at Friday morning. So this is by the end of this week. We're looking at temperatures that are going to be down to 48 degrees with a high up to about 76. This next weekend, very nice, okay? Dries up, temperatures lower to mid-80s, more of what you'd see like in springtime. And then as we get into the first part of next week, guess what? We're back to some more rain showers. We need the rain, we need the cooler conditions, so things are working in our behalf. Let's hope for the best.
All right, text time. We got your messages about today's show. Let's start with this one, mostly about the state seal on campaign signs and thereabouts. A distinction without a difference. The fact that the Idaho flag includes the state seal does not negate the fact that it is the state seal. They apparently have some good attorneys that look at that and go, not just the seal, but also the flag, so therefore it doesn't violate, I guess, not the letter of the law, but maybe, I don't know. The next one here, also including this, regarding the state seal on campaign signs, we should use this loophole for promoting pro-choice abortion rights and see what the state does. I don't think they'd look too kindly to that, says Jamie. Well, or Jaime, excuse me. I don't know about that, but yeah, there were some people, we got a couple of those today, that if it was the other side using the state seal flag on his campaign sign, things might go differently. But they're just giving you the rules based on the guidance when it comes to the state seal, which apparently is more sacred than the flag of Idaho. Once again, the majority party is playing games with an image of the flag on these signs to skirt the law's intent, says Kurt in Boise, and that's probably the opinion of a lot of people out there. Let's get to the next one here. That sign about ranked choice voting is just a sign of what's coming. Lies and deception, says Ken. Just don't know which side that means, whether the lies and deception are coming from the people putting up the sign or if ranked choice voting passes. Not sure which. Finally today, my granddaughter came home from school when she was in preschool and was horrified because there was a bone in her chicken leg at lunch. I even raise chickens and we collect the eggs. I guess we just don't talk about eating the girls, which probably, yeah, education begins at home. Start there.